I'm Alan Mann. I lead IT operations focused on observability and people leadership under pressure. This is the Metrics and Mayhem podcast. Let's get into this week. So a few years ago, I sat in a service review where the mean time to recovery had gone up. Not by much, a few minutes on the monthly average, but it had moved the wrong way. And you could generally feel the room change. By the third slide, someone had already said the word tooling, as in maybe the tool isn't pulling its weight. Maybe we should start looking at something else. 1 month, one number, and we were ready to tear up the plan. We'd been running for the whole quarter, maybe even 2 quarters. So today I want to talk about reflex because I think it's one of the quietest, most expensive habits we have in our industry. So here's what took me far too long to learn: the infamous metrics wobble. Your reliability numbers do not climb in a straight line. MTTR, change, failure rate, incident count, whatever you've got up on your wall, they move up and down month to month. And a lot of that movement isn't really telling you anything. The noise is just wearing a costume of a signal. So think about how that number is actually built. A monthly MTTR is an average of a handful of incidents. Sometimes small handful, one genuine ugly P1, the kind where the root cause sits with 3 vendors deep and can drag a whole month and go sideways on its own. Picture 2 months side by side. The first, you had 4 incidents and they all resolved quickly. In the second, 4 again. One of them was a certificate expiry nobody owned. It ran for 6 hours while 3 teams argued about whose it was. Your average just doubled. The strategy never moved. 1 incident did. And when we treat that wobble as a verdict, we do something costly. We thrash. Numbers down this month, so we're changing something. New process, new dashboard, new vendor trial. Next month it moves again because of course it does. And we change something else. I watched one team cycle through 3 monitoring changes in 4 quarters, chasing a number that never sat still. Always busy, always reorganizing, never running the same model long enough to find out if it worked. In 6 months, nobody in the room could even tell you what the current approach actually was. That's the real cost here, not the bad month. The thrash, as I call it. A strategy needs time on the pitch, to use a football analogy, before you can judge it honestly. And the team that gets to recognize every quarter never gets the straight answer, right? It never gets you to the straight answer. I've done it too, more than once. Sometimes I've tried not to do it. Pressures of the client or whatever it may be, pressures of your board. And I know I'm not standing above this one. I've been the person pointing at that very slide. And here's the really unnerving, uncomfortable bit. It feels responsible in the moment. It feels like leadership. You're reacting to the data. You're being decisive. You're not letting bad numbers slide. But decisiveness pointed at noise is just emotion. So let me just say that again. Decisiveness pointed at that noise is just motion. Just sit with that for a second. That month, the number went the wrong way. That wasn't falling strategy. That was just a Tuesday, a normal Tuesday. So look, here's the hard stop. And you love my hard stops. You've told me so. So here is the one-liner hard stop. If you change course every time a number wobbles, you don't have strategy, you have a flinch. What do you do with that? I'm not telling you to ignore these metrics. Hell no. I'm telling you to read them properly. And I'm not being pedantic. I'm not telling you all our suckings. I'm asking you just to read them properly. Take a moment. You decide what counts as real before you see the number. After all, not after, right? After is too late because after the number has already had a story attached to it. And you're just defending that number. We had X amount, we had this, we had that. So here's the habit you can set up this week. Tag your one headline reliability metric, the single one your leadership actually looks at. Before you open next month's figure, write down 2 things. How much movement would have generally mean something and how long that movement has to hold before you're allowed to act on it. For most teams, 1 month is noise. A direction that holds for 3 months is a signal. So you write it down. In plain words, I will not change the strategy on this metrics unless it moves the same way 3 months running. You get me? That sentence is your noise band, your wobble window that I affectionately call it. Put a number on it. If your MTTR sits around 40 minutes, you might decide that anything inside a 10-minute band up or down is just weather, right? Like a dynamic baseline. You only sit up when it breaks out of that band and stays out. I know this sounds something that we all do when a tool manages it for us, but I'm talking about these very important SLA metrics. I'm talking about the 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 visibility that the business has on you. Let's be honest. The discipline is generally hard to do, right? When the number wobbles inside the window, you do nothing. You know it. You hold the line. You let the strategy actually run. That does two things for you. It kills the thrash. Your team gets to keep one model long enough to learn something real from it. We're not making heartfelt, emotional decisions. It makes the true trend possible to argue with, because when the number moves for 3 straight months, that's not a Tuesday. That's when the system is telling you something true, and now you believe it because you've decided in advance that you would. Progress on a reliability metric looks like a scribble. Right? Scribble up close to a line from a distance. The whole job is to stand at the right distance and see where the scribble is. It's messy, but that's where we are. That's the hats we wear. And let's be honest, progress usually is. Thanks for listening. More signal soon. Hope you enjoyed it. And do the usual if you think it's useful. Much love to you all.